Palace, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Always happy to be with you.
All right, so let's start very, very simple. Who won the 2024 election?
Okay. Well, I've heard that Trump won, at least according to Elon Musk. But I have to tell you that I did a careful analysis of the numbers. And if it were not for ugly Jim Crow racist vote suppression tactics, Kamala Harris would have had an additional 3,565,000 votes. She would have won Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. She would have had 286 electoral votes. She'd have won the popular vote by about 1.25 million, and the Electoral College by 286 electoral votes. Now, how the heck do I get this stuff? It's all from government figures. I've been doing, for 25 years, I've been doing work as a forensic economist. This is my specialty for the U.S. Justice Department, for several American attorneys general. And in the past couple of years, I've been doing, and for 25 years, I've been working on vote suppression calculations. And these are numbers that I've provided in reports, technical reports for the ACLU, NAACP, Black Voters Matter. We go into federal court with these numbers. These are hard numbers from U.S. government statistics. 3.5 million more votes for Kamala Harris if it weren't for ugly tactics. And I'll give you a few and give you some of the breakdown if you'd like.
Yeah, let's talk. You focus in your film before the election, which really previewed some of what was to come. You really focus a lot on the state of Georgia in particular. So maybe tell us specifically about some of the tactics that were used there to disenfranchise voters that they suspected would vote Democratic.
Georgia's a swing state of swing states. It's also the test kitchen for GOP vote suppression tactics against people of color. And I'm not being partisan about this. I'm not in any party, but it's the GOP that's going after voters of color. So, and so when I talk about Georgia, it's the nation. But for example, the year before the election, leading up to the election, this is an official figure from what we call the United States Elections Assistance Commission. Believe it or not, we have an agency until I'm afraid to mention it to Mr. Musk because it'll be gone tomorrow. But we have an agency which not only tracks all our voting, but it tracks all the non-votes. Because the nasty little secret of American democracy is we don't let everyone vote, every citizen vote, and we don't count every ballot. There's no other nation which disqualifies so many voters. So according to the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission, just before the election, 4,776,706 voters, almost 5 million voters, were purged from the voter rolls. They were literally eliminated from the voter rolls without any solid evidence, zero. I'm not talking about people who died. I'm not talking about people who moved or people who were too crazy to vote and have a court order that says they can't vote. And let's go to Georgia to tell you how this breaks down. For the ACLU and for Reverend Jesse Jackson's legal team, Black Voters Matter, we went to federal court. I had done a study for the ACLU in which I took the 500,000 people that they purged in Georgia, and I brought in the experts who work with Amazon and also the United States Postal Service, turned over the list to these experts, and with their computers, believe me, Amazon knows where you live. They do, and so does the Postal Service. And what they came back with was 198,000 people on that list who supposedly didn't live in Georgia anymore or their voting address. They gave us the names and addresses of 198,000 voters who should never have been removed from the voter rolls. That alone took Georgia. There are other tricks too. And it's not just any, if it were random, it wouldn't matter. But we for those of you who are statisticians, I used to teach statistics, we did a sample of 800 of these people who were purged, and what we found is that overwhelmingly they were voters of color. Black people and a lot of young people who are also voters of color, the color's blue. It's not random. You remove 198,000 legal voters. And not just, and by the way, those are numbers. I want to remind you, if you saw my film, I was at the polling station in Atlanta when one black person after another is being thrown out. Oh, you're not on the rolls, you can't vote anymore. But then there was one 92-year-old woman in a walker who was thrown out after she'd been voting at that same station for 50 years. They said, no, you can't vote here anymore. And so I went with her to the house down the street that they said she didn't live in anymore. And there was a picture on the wall of Martin Luther King having dinner with her. I said, you knew King? She said, my cousin, he came here after church every Sunday. Martin Luther King's 92-year-old cousin was thrown off the voter rolls. If they can throw her off, you can imagine there's a lot of other black people thrown off. So these are the hard numbers of how it's done. There's also some other tricks. If you saw in my film Vigilantes, and I'm not making money off this, you can, Leonardo DiCaprio and James